Imagine being under investigation, an investigation by the FBI that drug on for several years. And after that investigation, you not only get zero response or zero disposition of that investigation, it is abruptly closed. And to this day, you are not able to get a security clearance. You are not able to fully move on with your life. And such is the predicament that my next guest, Ricki Laahs, has even today. Ricki, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for being on the Stories of Service podcast, Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Work. This is episode 204. And to get started with this episode, as I always do, here's an intro from my father, Charlie Pickard.
From the moment we're born and lock eyes with our parents, we are inspiring others. By showing up as a vessel of service, we not only help others, we help ourselves. Welcome to S.O.S, Stories of Service, hosted by Teresa Carpenter. Hear from ordinary people from all walks of life who have transformed their communities by performing extraordinary work.
And Ricki is a United States Marine Corps veteran whose career journey spans from military network administration to critical care nursing, and whose personal story raises urgent questions about civil liberties and government overreach. She began her service as a 0651, specializing in network administration, and her ability to bridge complex IT systems with real-world solutions propelled her quickly into leadership roles, both in uniform and as a government contractor. She later transitioned into project management before answering a deeper call to serve others through nursing. Today, she applies that same precision, grit, and compassion she learned in the military to her work as an ICU nurse, meeting people on their worst days and offering people hope in their darkest moments. But in 2021, her life changed drastically. And today is what we're going to talk about. After peacefully attending the January 6th rally in Washington, D.C., Ricki was abruptly fired from her contracting job. Without warning or due process, she was labeled a domestic terrorist and flagged as an insider threat by federal authorities. And to this day, she has been blacklisted from opportunities, harassed in airports, and denied access to the records that explain why. Welcome again, Ricki.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here. So first off, I always ask my guests who have served, which is the majority of them, where are you originally from, and what made you decide to make a career in the United States Marine Corps?
Long story. So originally I'm from like upstate New York, kind of towards like Buffalo area. So the way that I describe it, it kind of looks like a dinosaur head, and I'm from like the mouth of the dinosaur head in New York. And what inspired me to join the Marine Corps was my brother got into a car accident when he was 19. He is mentally handicapped for the rest of his life. He got a traumatic brain injury in the car accident, like not a single scratch on him. His brain just whooshed in his head. They had to mercy flight him to like Buffalo's critical care unit, the trauma ICU unit, and remove part of his skull cap and put it in his stomach. And then he was put into an induced coma for roughly like 3 months. So my family basically lived in the hospital. We got very familiar with all of the nurses, and we actually made a lot of friends with the families that were also in there. Still to this day, like very, very good friends. And so my brother's life changed drastically in that moment. And so I knew that he was going to have a really, really hard time for the rest of his life. And we were basically best friends growing up. My sister and I, we didn't really get along. We shared a room, you know, sisters, you know, we do now. So I decided like in my junior year, I was like, I'm going to make my life as hard as my brother's life is going to be, you know, to show him that, you know, he can do hard things. And just kind of like try to even the playing field for him almost, you know. Originally, I was going to join the Navy. Not going to lie. I called up the Navy recruiter, and he was like, oh, yeah, you have to come down to Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is like 6 hours from where I lived in New York. And I was like, no way. I was like, I'm not doing that. And no joke, as soon as I hung up the phone with the Navy recruiter, the Marine Corps recruiter called me. His name is Brian O'Rourke. He was such a great recruiter. And I know a lot of people can't say it's the same, right? So I had a really good experience with mine. And he was like, hey, have you thought about joining the Marine Corps? And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I figured that was like my calling from God, that he wanted me in the Marine Corps and not the Navy. And also during that time, they still had to chop off their hair, which I do not look good with that cut. So I really lucked out in that.
Wow. I mean, it's one of those things where everyone's origin story is so unique and so different. I've never heard that as the reason that somebody wanted to join, but what an example that you set for him, having him experience such a catastrophic injury and then showing that life goes on and that we find a way to get through no matter what life throws at us. And the Marine Corps, as we all know, is the hardest service to go to boot camp. The standards are the highest. As we all know, they are the one branch of service that didn't have all the recruiting issues that the other branches had, or I still believe still somewhat have. And I do believe there's a reason for that, and it's because of the high standards. And so tell me a little bit about your Marine Corps journey.
So I joined as an open contract comm, right? And then I got put into 0651s because of my GT score or whatever being higher. And so I went to comm school in 29 Palms. A lot of people hate 29 Palms. It's got a bad rap. I personally really like it. The sunsets are the best there. And so then I was stationed in Quantico, Virginia for all of my career. It's kind of like a sinkhole. Once you go there, it's really hard to get out. And so I worked for the G6 there, and I worked for they always sent me to the generals' houses because that's where the generals lived when they worked up at the Pentagon. So there's probably like 15 or 16 general houses like on Quantico. And so I would be the one, going there and like fixing their networks. And I worked on classified and unclassified networks. And I was, setting up all the different events and all that good stuff. And then, so then I got out in 2017 and I became just like a contractor for the government.
So how many years did you serve total in the Marine Corps?
4 active.
Gotcha. And then once you started working for this contractor, how did things go initially there?
So I jumped around to different contracts. So it wasn't just one contracting company I worked for. As soon as I got out, I moved from Virginia back to 29 Palms, California. So, which a lot of people would never do, but the traffic in DC is the worst. Sure. In my opinion, wouldn't want to live there again. So I went back, and then I had such a great time contracting. I mean, it's kind of like being in the Marine Corps, but not having to, deal with all the other BS that you have to deal with, like field days and, mandatory battalion runs or rucks or what have you. Like you still get the same community because everybody there was like, they were veterans or they grew up like with family in the military. Like you still have the same camaraderie in that. Which was at every single job that I was at, which was amazing. Those are my people, and yeah. I'm sure that you can relate.
I absolutely can relate. It's one of those things where everybody is working towards the same thing. It's an amazing environment. I've worked for some leaders that just knew how to foster that teamwork, and it's the most incredible experience when you're on that kind of a team. So, and I always appreciated the contractors and the civilians that I would work with because I felt like they provided an expertise or an experience that many of us serving on active duty didn't have. And a lot of them were veterans like yourself. So they had already served and they'd done a lot of the same jobs in public affairs, but they did it in a different capacity or in a different period in history. So it was always really interesting to serve with them. And they also, a lot of times, had the longevity at those commands longer than us active duty. So it was just nice to have that continuity at those locations. So at this particular contractor that we're going to discuss, tell me a little bit about what led, like, were you a Trump supporter and disappointed with the outcome of the election and thought this was an opportunity to peacefully assemble, express your freedom of speech protections? What kind of led up to that day?
So I wasn't really political before all of this happened. This has actually made me much more aware, which I'm really thankful for. It opened my eyes to how crazy and corrupt things are. But what led up to it was I was seeing this guy. He was like, "Hey, you really need to vote," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll get around to it," And he was like, no, we're going to go vote right now. You're going to go vote. And I was like, all right, fine. Like, and so obviously my vote was for Trump. It was a no, like, I was like, obviously, right. It was an obvious vote for me. And so then we like my coworkers and I, like, we all made a bet, right? We're like, oh no, like Trump's going to win this. No, Biden's going to win this. So we had like a small, like little election party at my apartment when I was living in Colorado Springs. And whoever won, like they got to have dinner made for them, right? I was like, all right, if Trump wins, like you have to make me dinner, and if I lose, then I have to make you dinner, kind of thing, right?
And what strikes me is that this was so friendly, and these were people that might disagree with you guys, with you politically, but of course you were still friends, and you still, had those healthy differences.
Yeah, and I still made them dinner, right? Like I'm not a sore loser like that, right? I'm not like, no, I'm not making. No, I made them dinner and stuff, right. And it was really good. So then after that, what led me to go to the Trump rally? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. So my friend Corey, him and his fiance had broken up. He was in a really bad place. We worked together in 29 Palms. We were best friends. And he was like, hey, Ricki, I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. I want to go to this thing. Like, will you come with me? And as we know, like with a lot of service members and stuff, when they need you, like they're not going to say, hey, I need you, So it's like those kind of subtle hints. So I was like, absolutely, like, but can we go to the one in California? Because I'm not trying to make that drive, right? Like from Colorado to Virginia is like a miserable drive. And he was like, no, Ricki, I really want to go. If we're going to go to the one in DC. And I was like, fine, twist my arm, right? I'll go. So that's actually how we went. Like that was my motivation on going, was because of a friend in need. And so we drove across the country and we got there, and we didn't even make it on time for Trump's speech. So still to this day, I still have not seen Trump speak live. So wow. Isn't that crazy?
So tell me a little bit about, because the way that January 6th is sold to us through the media is that it was just this like rush into the Capitol building, all these people that was mobbing and breaking the law. Tell me what you observed.
So it's so crazy to me because what I saw, it was more like a festival, right? It was more like a really big patriotic parade. Like there was flags everywhere. Like people had like the big Garrison flags, and they were walking with it. And there were people like banging on drums on the side of the road, and there was vendors everywhere just selling Trump merchandise, right? And then there was actually like a stage set up, and I got a video of it. There's a stage set up, and the YMCA song?
Yep.
So they did the MAGA song, instead. And it was so funny because like you had all these people dressed up, like one of them had like a fake Trump mask on. Like it was a lot of fun, and when we got when we actually finally made it to the Capitol building, like everybody was still in like good spirits and stuff. Like nobody was doing anything like super crazy. And so when I was getting text messages when I was there, and it was like, oh, like be careful, like things are crazy. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, no, it's not. So it's just a very stark difference between what I observed there and then like what the media was portraying, if that makes any sense. So,
did you ever go inside the Capitol building, or did you stay outside, or you stayed outside?
No, I was outside. Yeah, but I did see the Capitol Police open the doors and usher people in, and then they closed the doors. And then when they came back out, like one of the sergeants of the Capitol Police came out, he threw like a smoke bomb and was like wagging his finger. It was so bizarre. They also like cut off cell phone service for hours. Or maybe it was just an hour. I don't know. I was only there for about 2 hours, but it drained my phone battery so quick. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I need Google Maps. Like, I don't know where I'm going. So yeah, it was super weird.
Okay. And so you go to this thing, you fly back home, and then what is the next thing that happens at your work in regards to this incident?
So nothing initially happened. They they didn't know that I went, because a lot of people that had gone and were just there peacefully too, like I was, were getting fired. Like as soon as like their employers found out, they were getting let go. So it was definitely really scary. But it took them a couple of months, and then one of my former coworkers turned me into HR, and they actually called the FBI first and said, "Hey, I know somebody that was there." Turned me into the FBI, then turned me into HR, and then
HR
by
at
that,
a contracting firm, and then
correct,
to the
yes.
actual FBI. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's just insane. And did this person give you a heads up that they were going to do this?
No, they just told me like, so it was this guy that I was dating, which I knew better, don't poop where you eat, but I did. And so I was actually trying to break up with him, and then he was like, well, who knows that you went to the Capitol building. So it was kind of like a really toxic relationship kind of thing going on. So then when I finally ended things with him, he turned me into the FBI and then HR, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you must have been in total fear too. Once you ended it, you knew like this might be sadly, what this person does. And it was the kind of culture where, as you say, people were being told that they would no longer have a job
Yeah.
without any due process of anything.
Mm-hmm.
That just blows my mind. It really
Yeah.
does. That this
And
can
honestly,
happen.
it's more than like the getting fired and being humiliated in front of everybody by getting fired. It was like they took away my community. Like I lost so many who I thought were my friends that day because they were afraid to even be like seen with me or my name next to theirs, because they were like, oh my gosh, like we can't be seen with her because she's, the FBI, is involved in whatever she's got going on. She's an insider threat, and like all of these list of labels that they gave me. Just totally stripped that away from me.
And I know that for legal reasons, you're not comfortable saying the contractor, but are you comfortable, and if you're not, that's totally okay. Are you comfortable saying what command with the military that this contractor was working for that allowed this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was working for the Space Force. I was with the J6 at Space Force Command. So it was like JTFSD, which is like the Special Task Force. I'm not sure. Lots of letters. You know how military commands are with their acronyms.
Did they also have say on how this would go, or did they leave it all up to the contractor to make a disposition in regards to your employment?
So I'm not entirely sure. After I was fired, my boss and I were really good friends, and
your
he
boss
was
at
like,
the contracting company.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And so he told me, he's like, the only reason that they fired you so quickly is because they were worried that the FBI was going to come in and take you out in handcuffs. And I was like, that's crazy. Like I didn't even do anything, right? But but they had to have known something, because as soon as I left, I was labeled as an insider threat, like we talked about. And then they went through all of my things. Like the cyber command just went through all of my hard drives and stuff and whatever I was working on. Obviously, they didn't find anything because I'm not an insider threat,
right?
but I was still labeled as such. And then everybody got an email too saying like not to talk about me, or they would get written up and like all these things. And two of my friends that knew that I went there, they ended up getting like a mark on their record that said like if they made another mistake, basically like that they would get their clearance taken away. So
if they made another mistake, that the mistake being not turning you in was the mistake.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just can't believe something like this could happen in our country, just because you don't like the rally that you go to. You are more than entitled in your civilian off-duty capacity to attend any rally, any press conference, any lawful and peaceful demonstration that you choose to attend. And I find it very interesting that you said you saw the Capitol Police open the doors.
It was really suspicious.
That.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either. I was like, what's going on? Like, that's so weird. And then, it was a weird day. It was like, as soon as, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but like the vibes of the rally and stuff were really, really positive, like all the way up until the Capitol. And then like, everybody was still like having a good time. And then it was like weird, but it was also like weird, like when you feel like something weird's happening. I don't know.
Like
something's off.
Like almost like it makes me wonder, and who knows, but that maybe the people who were attending the rally were somehow set up to fail, set up to break the law. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying. I can only explain my experience in D.C. after Trump won this past January, and I went to a MAGA rally that I never got into, but I spent an entire Sunday in line with MAGA people. It was my first exposure to any of this, and it was the most joyful, peaceful. I felt the same way, like I was at a festival. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, everybody had the swag. There were people everybody was just happy, in a good mood. There was none of that stuff. There was no violence, nothing. And
it's like a whole party.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was just a bunch of happy people and good people and all ages, all ethnicities. I mean, it was really eye-opening. And I took a lot away from that trip. So let's go back to your story. You go back and you now no longer have a job and you're like, what's next? So what do you do?
Yeah, so I was like, initially I started like applying for other government contracting jobs and stuff, but my clearance was put under a loss of jurisdiction. And what I was told then was that I would need a whole nother background investigation, which nobody was doing at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not in love with IT, So I was like, okay, what can I do that I love and I can get paid to do it, right? So then I tried to go be a flight attendant for SkyWest, and I got accepted into the position, and I had already gone through all the interviews, and I had my class like start date, for flight attendant school. And thank you, Ryan. It is a really cool shirt. And
I forgot to show you this too. Somebody said, ironic, the project you were assigned to was J6.
I know, right? So I was so I applied, I got accepted, all of the things were set up. Then I got a call from my mom, and my friend Emily and I were actually driving to California at the time because our friend Juan was having a rough time, right? So we were about to leave, and I got a call from my mom, and my mom was like, hey, somebody from the FBI was like calling for you. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And she's like, she was giving me the scoop, and she was like, yeah, they said, I asked them if they wanted your phone number, and they said no, that they would find it. So then I got a call, an incoming call, and it was them. So I answered the phone. It's my FBI guy. His name's Kevin. He was like, hey, and I didn't know him before, right? So this was my first introduction to Kevin. And he was like, hey, I see that you're trying to apply for SkyWest, but you need a federal background check. We are going to need you to come in so that way we can talk about like your involvement in January 6th. Right. And I was like, I'm on my way to, like, I'm kind of driving to California right now. Can we do this when I get back? And he's like, well, have you left yet? And I was like, well, no. And then he's like, well, can you come in today? And I was like, I guess I can, right? I guess we can make the pit stop and then I can go later. So, went and got interviewed by the FBI. That took a long time.
How were they? Were they accusatory or were they polite? Was it a good experience? What was that initial interview like?
I wouldn't say it was bad or uncomfortable or anything. But I was just kind of like, because at the time, like, I was really scared, right? Yeah. Because I was like being labeled, like, I was like, why are they calling me in? Like, I didn't do anything crazy, So I feel like whenever you're getting called in to go get an interview by the FBI, you're always like a little on edge. So, but they were okay. It was two guys. One of them was a JAG in the Army. He was a reservist. And then the other one was Kevin. And I guess there was a female that was supposed to be in there, but she never showed up. So yeah, I walked them through everything, that happened at the Capitol building, and then up until that point where I was investigated, or that I got called into the FBI. And then I left, and then the very next day I got an offer rescission from SkyWest. They were like, "Oh, like you failed to meet the background check," and that was that. So I was like, I can't even pass a federal background check. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket.
Wow.
And mm-hmm.
So you're like, okay, I can't get a job there. And did you go back to the FBI and say, kind of in a nice way, WTF, like what's going on with my clearance and my background check? Or are you guys doing an investigation on me? So you went back to them. I'm sure that's what I would have done.
So I did go back and forth with Kevin quite a bit because he texted me the address. So I had his phone number. So I was like,
yeah, I know.
I was like, perfect, Kevin. Yeah. I was like, this is great. I think he got his number changed since, because I've tried to reach out to him and I get crickets. But yeah, so I reached out to him a little while later, and I was like, hey, Kevin, like, do you know what's going on? Like, and I was having issues like getting my passport back and stuff too. So because I like had a name change and all this stuff, and so I had to get a new passport and whatever.
Sure.
But it wasn't coming back to me. So I reached out to him, and he's like, hey, your investigation has concluded, like you shouldn't have any issues with your clearance or your passport or anything. And so I was like, okay, well, I still like didn't have a clearance because one of my friends, Wendy, she was checking for me like on, the clearance website, whatever it is called now. And it still said loss of jurisdiction. So,
So
that didn't clear it up.
Yeah, you're in limbo, and Kevin's not giving you any answers on what to do. So is this around the time that you consult Bill Brown, the attorney from Parlatory Law Firm, or what happens next?
Oh my gosh, yeah, sorry. This is like a 4-year-long story. So I try to condense it as much as I can. There's just so many things that has happened. So no, that's not when I contacted Bill, but I did have a different lawyer at the time who ghosted me, right? In the interim, because that was when I was actually suing that company for wrongful termination.
Right.
Because they had lied about the reason that they were firing me for, and they said, like, they basically said that they weren't firing me for political reasons, which we know is a lie. So anyways, my lawyer ghosted me a little bit during that time. And then after I got out of the interview with the FBI, guess who was walking down the street? My lawyer. So I was like, where you been? I just got out of the office with the FBI. I think that you probably should have been there. So anyways, he ended up like helping me, and we sued them and then we settled or whatever. But so then after that, I moved to North Carolina because my sister had gotten cancer. And then I finally found, or my friend Wendy hooked me up with this contracting company who knew the whole situation. They knew the whole story. They knew what happened to me, and they were willing to sponsor my clearance to get reinvestigated so that way I could come and work for them.
Awesome. Right. And so you're like, new beginning. I'm going to finally get past this. And
yes.
And just for the record, like, you're an IT person who's worked in government. People are going to expect you to have a clearance. That's
exactly
part of the job.
Yeah, you have to have one in order to do like any kind of meaningful work. And I had like a TSSCI with SAP, which is special access programs, because I worked at the Space Force.
Right.
So I went through, it took them over a year, DCSA, to get back to us with a statement of reasons that said that they were going to be preliminary revoking my clearance, right? Because of all of these reasons that they listed. And two of them are that my allegiance is not with the United States, and that I'm a criminal, even though I've never been charged with a crime. So that is when I reached out to Bill, because I was like sobbing, obviously, when this lady, her name is Danielle, she is a saint. She really stuck with me through it all. And she was like reading me, down the list. And I was like, none of this is even true. Like, I'm not a criminal. I've never been charged with any crimes. And now, if I would have been charged with a crime, I would have had a presidential pardon. So I probably wouldn't be in this purgatory anymore. But, and then 2, like, I've never pledged allegiance to any other country. I'm like, who are you even talking about? So, and then rewinding a little bit before that, I was actually put on the domestic terrorist watch list too. And I got to find that out at the airport when I was like trying to fly from Colorado to New York to see that sister that had cancer. And yeah, it was a really miserable experience. If you never get, put on the domestic terrorist watch list, like, good for you, because it really does suck.
I just can't believe that all of this stemmed from you being at a legal gathering. It's just blows my mind the way people will target each other based on their political beliefs, and it
Honestly,
saddens me.
It was so horrible. So when I got fired that week, they told me, hey, we need you to call HR at this time because we want to question you. Like, some things about your character has come up or whatever. And just the way that they were grilling me about like what had happened, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe that they're like treating me like this.
Yeah. Like something like this. It's like stuff that you hear about like in a communist country. It's like just things that you would just never think that a country that has a democracy would do to its citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you say, okay, you've got this statement of reasons about why they've denied your reinvestigation. So this new contracting job that you thought you were going to have, I'm sure does not work out. And then I do recall when we talked previously, I think you even lost your home as a result of this. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I was in the process of buying a house, and it was this really adorable, cute little townhouse in Colorado Springs, and it was only about 20 minutes away from work. It was perfect. And so I was under contract, and we were about 2 weeks away from closing when I got fired. And I was like, I had to obviously report that I had lost my job, and then I couldn't get one fast enough to save the deal. So I ended up losing the house, and then I was getting threatened by the sellers that they were going to sue me, and all of these things like piled on top of getting
Wow.
fired. And
wow,
it was a bad time. It was not a great couple years.
No. And so now back to, you bring Bill in, and so what do you and Bill work on?
So Bill, I reached out to the Parlator group because I heard about them on Andy Frisella's podcast, and Tim was actually a guest on there, and he said that he had done a lot of work with security clearances and stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, noted. Like, if I ever get a response back from them and it's not in my favor, this is who I'll reach out to. So I ended up reaching out to them, and then Bill got back to me the next day, and in those, like, whenever I'm really emotional, it's really hard for me to explain the whole story. I get sidetracked and like I can't finish my sentences and I stutter. But he really was such a saint, and he stuck with me through my whole blabbering, crying bullshit, And so he was like, okay, Ricki, this is what we're going to do. We're going to respond to this. We're going to find case law that supports it. He's like, you are being targeted. You're being treated unfairly. Like, there hasn't been any due process for you, right? No. And all of his legalese that I don't really understand.
Right.
Yeah. So we respond to this statement of reasons, and he, puts everything down there, like in this little margin that is blank. And then a couple weeks later, we get a rescission of the statement of reasons, because supposedly the people that had issued the statement of reasons didn't actually have like the authority to do so. And they would be reissuing a new statement of reasons soon. And then they lied to us about who was going to be sending them. They said it was going to be an Air Force command. And then they were like, oh, no, actually it's not. And then they never gave us who was supposed to do that.
Wow. So basically they got called out. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes, and that was last May.
They probably just sent you some form letter like, we don't want to deal with this anymore, and so we're just going to make it so that she can never get a clearance again, and because it was just politically expedient. And they probably just, obviously there's people that just take it, and you didn't.
Yeah.
And so when you started, with the help of Bill, digging into what those statement of reasons were and then providing legal justification for why those were not valid reasons, that's when they had to cover their tracks.
Yeah,
say,
they were like,
okay,
whoopsie. Yeah.
That's just so unacceptable. Okay, so then they said they were going to reissue a new statement of reasons or a new determination last May of 2024. And what happens next?
Yeah, they have never sent anything since. They've never reached out to us. We don't even know who to contact at this point, because they never told us who was supposed to be reissuing this. We also reached out to the FBI last February, and we did a Freedom of Information Act request, so that way we could clear my name, because I'm not a criminal and I was never charged with a crime. And so we needed the supporting documents from the FBI stating that, right? So we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request so that way we could get all of the paperwork from my investigation that Kevin told me they had already finished. And then they just wouldn't give it to us. They kept saying that they had sent it, but we had proof that they did not send it. And it was just a huge rigmarole until a couple of weeks ago, when they finally sent a letter stating that, actually, we can't give you anything because this could be used in future proceedings, maybe. And we're going to be administratively closing out your request.
So what are the implications of this? Like, what does this mean now? Because you still don't know how they investigated you. You still don't have a copy of the investigation about you. You do not understand why the case was closed. Where are you now? Like, what happens from this point forward?
So we're not giving up. That's not in my DNA to give up. Good. And my mom, my mom passed away last year, and she would never want me to give this up. She was like, Ricki, you were wronged. And so out of principle for myself and for my mom, I'm still going to be fighting this out. But we are, still asking the FBI to give it another look and see what is going on, because this is, a politically based attack. And we're hoping that the message gets to Kash Patel eventually, and that he sees, what happened and what's going on. So that way, hopefully he can, give me my records that I'm asking for and clear my name, because that's really important to me. Being called a traitor and saying that my allegiance is not with the country that I served is a really big slap in the face. And then as far as DCSA goes, as soon as we can get those records from the FBI, I'll probably just reach back out to DCSA, their help desk or whatever, and try to get some more traction on it.
I'm curious, have you thought about doing a congressional inquiry?
So I have reached out to, I did reach out to my congressman twice when I was living in Jacksonville before I moved to Charlotte to go to nursing school. And I believe, honestly, that they're the reasons why that the statement of reasons got sent out the first time, because there was this guy, his name was Cody. He helped me. He's like, hey, this is what I need from you. And he was very patient. God bless Cody. And he was like, no, Ricki, this is what I need from you. And then I was like, but I don't have that. And he's like, just estimate on when, you got your, new clearance or whatever. And I was like, okay, Cody, I can do that. I like to be precise. So you just needed to tell me that I had a little bit of wiggle room with it. But I really do think that they are the reason that the statement of reasons was actually given to us.
Because I think that now where you're living, what I always do, no matter where I'm living, one of the first things I do is I register to vote in that area. And then the second thing I do, if I need it, is I reach out to the military liaisons, who are the people, well, for me, military, it wouldn't be really in your case, but or a government liaison. They might have a government, representative in their office, like a local staffer, and just ask to have a meeting. Just ask them if you can have a 15-minute meeting or a 15-minute phone call, and say, I really would like the FBI to take another look at this and to clear my name. I attended a January 6th event. I was there lawfully, and they drug out an investigation for years, didn't tell me the disposition of it. Then they withdrew their statement of reasons after they were called out for it, and then abruptly closed the case. But to this day, I still can't get a security clearance, and my name has never been officially cleared. And what are some of the other implications of this besides just the security clearance from this point forward if this doesn't get cleared?
Well, if I can't, so now I'm a nurse, right? But my boyfriend is planning on going back into active duty as soon as he finishes his PhD program. And he's going to go be a psychologist for the Navy. And so, whenever we get married, should that ever happen, I won't be able to get jobs on base either. So I won't be able to get really any federal jobs or anything, because that requires, some type of a clearance. And is that the kind of question?
That's what I mean. I
think
answer
your question?
This is bigger than just clearing your name. This is because there are so many things that you can't do. I know Kirk Davis is like, go direct to Kash Patel. Yes, because our podcast reaches Kash Patel. I mean, I would love if it did. Like, I would love it if he was watching this podcast and he could see what, unfortunately, our government did to you, Ricki, and they owe you an apology. I mean, this is the most ridiculous nonsense, and it's so easy to clear this up, and it's not being cleared up, and it makes me really mad. And I do hope that those are the kinds of people that watch these Stories of Service podcast, and they see that we're not afraid to speak up and speak out on this show and have hard conversations to solve problems. And that's what this show is about, is solving problems. So can you tell me a little bit about like what the toll this has taken on you the last few years dealing with this?
Yeah. So, and I fidget every time I talk about it. My palms sweat. It's like a total visceral reaction of me like reliving it. So like I said, I lost my community. Like I don't have those friends anymore because they're afraid to be my friends. And it's really embarrassing, because it's like I want to reach out to them and see how they're doing, because I love them and I care about them, but I can't, because they're probably still afraid to talk to me. And when I was put on the domestic terrorist watch list, I had really, really bad experiences in the airport. TSA, I joke around and say like they were going like to second base with me without even asking, which is true, but it was a lot more than that, because they would set up security checkpoints at every connecting flight, like not just in the initial process. Wow. I would, so I was getting, and I would be getting called out in TSA, and humiliated in front of, all of these people who I don't even know, saying, this is her, like, this is the terrorist. And so it's made traveling, which is my favorite thing in the world to do, absolutely miserable. Like, I get really nervous anytime I fly now. And then, they say like that my investigation is cleared and stuff, but still, like, to this day, like I'll get pulled back, like, by people, like when I come back from other countries and stuff, and they're like, where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with? Like all of these things. And it just kind of puts me back in that place to where like my own country doesn't even trust me anymore.
It's traumatic. And it's absolutely traumatic.
Super traumatic. And it's just like, I think it's like they took so much from me. Like, they didn't just take away my job and my income and my house and my friends, but it's like they took a part of my identity, because now it's like, oh, Ricki, why aren't you in IT anymore after I did IT for like almost 10 years? They're like, why would you give up your career? And it's like, then I have to, I can choose to lie to them, but I'd rather tell them the truth and tell them what happened to me. But it's like, like I said, it's like a whole visceral reaction, and then I'll stumble over my words, and I'm not a stutterer,
Right,
but
right.
but it makes me stutter. So
Well, and it upsets me too because there's already so much polarization about political beliefs to begin with. I mean, I've lost friends over my beliefs and over some of the things that I say online, and it's
mhm.
devastating. Like, I would never, I don't care how much somebody loves Biden or hates Hegseth or whatever. I don't care. I care
Mhm.
more about my friendships with those people. But not everybody sees it that way. I learned
No.
that once you are a person who is transparent about what your beliefs are, there are people that just will not speak to you. And the problem with your case is that it does spotlight which side of the aisle you fall under, or which way some of your beliefs fall. And it's just so infuriating that you could be targeted like this. And if people on the other side don't think they could be targeted like this, they can very well be targeted the same exact way. And I think that no matter what side of the aisle you fall under, you should see what happened to you, Ricki, as a severe injustice and miscarriage of due process. It doesn't matter how you feel about Trump or Biden or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's wrong what happened to you, and it must be talked about and it must be stopped. So, um, I do hope you reach out locally to your local representatives and make them aware of this case, because even if they don't do anything, they should at least be aware that this has happened to you, because it's not right. And what advice would you give to others who are fighting similar issues with due process? I know I've been talking with Darren Lopez all this week, and he even said that is a fact. So he's listening in. And what would you say to other people who are fighting to clear their name?
Yeah, absolutely. I've given this a lot of thought. I would tell them don't give up. If you need help, if you need somebody that'll give you, the motivation to get back in the fight, or you're just feeling down and drained, reach out to me. You can, find me on Facebook, send me a DM, find my email, whatever. Like, reach out to me, and I'll give you that motivation, because it's so important that you see this through, because um, we have rights for a reason, and they're not like, you can't just pick and choose, like they can't pick and
Yeah.
choose which rights that they're going to give you. Like, they are your rights for a reason. And yeah, if you give up, like, they win, and
I
we
agree.
can't let that happen.
We can't let our nation fall apart. We
No,
can't
we
let
can't.
this country. There is a reason why. I mean, I've been all over Europe. I've been all over the Middle East. I've been all over Asia Pacific, and I can tell you, people still hold the United States in such high regard, and that can't ever end. And we have to set the example, and we have to show that we are better than these differences and these divisions and these kinds of cases. I mean, it's the reason why I focus so much on due process. It to me, and freedom of speech, because those
Hmm.
are just such fundamental rights that every single citizen must be afforded in order to be a citizen of this country. If you're a citizen of this country, you are entitled to due process and you are entitled to use your voice. So I feel
Absolutely.
very
And you're not
strongly
a,
about that.
absolutely. And whoever else is going through this, like, I just want you to know that you are not alone. It can get really dark, and you can have really bad days, but reach out to your friends, reach out to me. Like, just remind yourself that you're not alone in this, and you can get through it.
Awesome. Well, Ricki, thank you so much for coming on the Stories of Service podcast. I'm going to go full screen and I'll meet you backstage. But it takes a lot of bravery to share your story and to be so transparent and open. And I really admire you. You're a very strong person. And thank you so much for having the courage to do this.
Thank you, Teresa. And thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you later.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining the Stories of Service podcast. I may be coming at you this Thursday, still working through that, but if not, I will be back again next week. Summer's going well. Hope you guys are having an amazing summer, winding down the last 2.5 months left of military service. So good times on all ends here, but hope you enjoy the rest of your day. As I always close these calls, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye now.